Good afternoon, it's Dave at ATI Watch Reviews. Please smash that like button, please smash that subscribe button for more awesome watch content. Little wristwatch check, I've got my Casio GST B500, 2022 release, Bluetooth, tough solar, stainless steel, absolutely gorgeous. But today is a little comparison review of two super popular Pagani chronograph timepieces. We've got the PD-1644 on the left, and on the right we've got the PD-1718, which is a 2022 or a very recent release, whereas this model has been out for a couple of years now. They're both, well, the 1644 is 100 meter water resist, ceramic tachymeter bezel that's fixed, 3 sub-dials, chronograph with the screw pushers, fully solid stainless steel bracelet with the double locking fold over clasp, with a VK 63 mecha quartz movement, which has the running hands, the running seconds on the bottom there at 6 o'clock, versus the 1718, which is actually a slightly smaller watch, even though I think it's marketed, I've seen it at 41 and I've seen it marketed at 40, and basically this is actually a slightly smaller watch depending on which way you look at it. It's complicated, and this is also a mecha quartz. This is a VK64 movement. This doesn't have the running seconds. Ceramic tachymeter bezel, domed sapphire crystal. I should say this has a flat sapphire crystal. Obviously this is in the Panda, but although you can buy both in the Panda or both in the black. This is also 100 meter water resist, and this also has the screw pushers to activate the chronograph. This has a slightly bigger bracelet, but as I'm going to get right into in terms of the sizing, this is where it's very interesting, because on the 1644, I initially thought it was a smaller watch because the bracelet has a bigger taper, it's thinner, but when you actually look at it, this is actually a bigger watch, really, in my opinion, although it is complicated. So the overall dimension of the 1644 is 44.1. This is that dimension with the case included and the crown. It is 44.1. The bezel diameter is 39.2. Whereas, and the lug to lug is 47.8. Whereas, and the thickness is 10.9 or 10.8, I think I got. Now, this, because the end-link to end-link dimension, okay, is probably around 48.3, and because the overall dimension is 44.1, this is in comparison to the 1718, which has an overall diameter of 42.4 with a lug to lug of 47.6 and an end-link to end-link with the female end links of 45.6. The bezel diameter is 39.4. So, oh, and the thickness though, the thickness is 12.9 to the top of that domed crystal. So it is the 1718 is smaller in the sense of overall diameter, in the sense of lug to lug, and in the sense of end link to end link. It is thicker, but the end link to end link on this and the overall diameter being bigger and the lug to lug being slightly bigger makes, in my opinion, it makes this one feel slightly bigger in terms of the head on the wrist compared to the 1718, which feels more like a true 40mm watch. I would say this feels more like a 42, really. Feels more like because it's got the size and the end link to end link, it is bigger. Having said that, the bracelet on this one doesn't significantly taper. It's got about a 2mm taper, whereas this has got a 4mm taper for 20 to 16. So it's a funny one. For sizing, I probably prefer the 1718. It feels slightly smaller on the wrist and slightly more balanced, actually, slightly. Although the bracelet is comfier on the 1644, the one on my left. But for sizing, I'm going to give the winner slightly to the 1718 on my right. Now, for bezels, well, bezels is a very easy one because they're both fixed and they're both ceramic and they're both practically very, very similar. Maybe slightly more legible on the 1718, but I'm going to give it a draw on the bezels. They're both very good. You're getting ceramic bezels for a super cheap price. It is very good what they've managed to do. Crystals. This is an easy one for me. The 1644 has a flat crystal that is just proud of the bezel, whereas the 1718 has a big dome, big fat dome that increases the thickness. I personally, as I've said before, I'm not the biggest fan of dome crystals because of the reflections and just the way it looks. Personally, I prefer the winner to be the 1644, in my opinion. I don't like dome crystals. Okay, talk about dials. Dials are both very good. Obviously, we're comparing a Panda to a non-Panda, to just the all black. The dials are excellent on both. But for legibility, the dial is superior on the 1718. As you can see, there's less going on. There's only 2 sub-dials instead of 3. And it is easier to read the indices on the 1718. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of that UGS in red compared to the 1644, which has also got an excellent dial, but it's not as legible. I probably prefer the look of the 1718 and its ergonomics. I probably prefer but you do have a running seconds hand on the 1644, as you can clearly see. And you have the date window. But personally, I prefer the look of the 1718. The actual chronograph is very similar on both. You unscrew them, then you activate it. Reset it. I've not screwed it tight enough, sorry. Make sure they're screwed down. Both very similar. I won't bother showing you this one, but it is very, very similar. Look, one I will do. So I'm going to give the chronograph mechanisms a draw on both. They both work very good. Just make sure you've screwed them out enough to activate them, and make sure you've screwed them down enough when you want to stop using it. Let's talk about the case backs. Stainless steel, laser etched, sports case back. Pretty simple, but does the business on the 1644. Come on. Versus 1718. Again, practically identical. Both have the model number on it. Both are practically identical. Give that a draw. I prefer exhibition windows, but you can't have your cake and eat it. It's easier to achieve the water resistance with stainless steel than it is, polycarbonate or, using the crystal on the back. Therefore, it is a draw on the case backs. For loom, the loom is a winner to the 1718. The loom is superior, and obviously the baton, they don't have batons like the 1644. So the loom is definitely superior. It is good on the 1718. It's not amazing. It's not Swiss loom, but it is okay. It's okay. The winner is definitely the 1718 on that one. Let's talk about bracelets, and this is an interesting one because the 1644 has, and I have scratched it up because I've used it a lot, the 16 has a 20 to 16 mil taper with the fold over deployant clasp with safety catch that we all know works very well, and we all know where the designs come from, with the trigger style. The materials and tolerances of it are okay, but they're not amazing. But it is a fantastic design. If they could improve the materials and tolerances, this would be my all-time probably favourite clasp, really. You also get the mini extension, the quick extension. If you want to, you can slot that out there, get an extra, I think 5mm in adjustment with the, but the design of, it's not a quick adjust clasp, so you've got a pin in there. If I was to pull this out now, you've got, I think, 3 settings that you can set it on. Setting that pin is a nightmare, but when it is in, it's completely secure. The bracelet has a central polish, which I do like on this particular one, with the outer shoulders polished, or the outer flank, sorry. With a screw down, it is screw down. There are screws in there, which work very good actually on this one, on the 1644. On this model, I had a little bit of issue with some of the screws. I don't particularly like the way they've done it. It has 4 rivets as well, but it has a fully brushed design, which a lot of people prefer than having a central polished, but it's not a big of that for me which way it goes. But definitely polished watches scratch way more, shoulder scratches more than a brushed. So if you're bothered about that, definitely go with a brushed one. The clasp is just a standard deployant. It has got big swing arms. In fact, it's got really fat swing arms. I don't know if you can see that, but the thickness of that arm is about 1.92mm. That is incredibly thick. I think this part is about 1.6, but this does not have any kind of extension on the fly at all. It just has 3 micro adjusts, and it's just got a pressed shell. So it's an okay clasp. I mean, it does the job. It's not amazing by any stretch of the imagination. It does the job. The mechanism is, again, adequate to good. It could be a crisper mechanism, but it's secure. It's not going to come off. It is secure. It's push button. I probably prefer, well, no, I definitely do prefer the bracelet on the 1644, the one on the left. I prefer the taper, and I prefer this clasp. Although I do like the look of this with the central polish, Not that being said, it definitely does scratch way more than having an all brushed. So I'll just do a wrist shot as well for both of them. Oh, they both have the Mecha Quartz movement. It's both a Seiko movement. One's the VK63, one's the VK64. The only main difference, I believe, I don't think there's any significant difference in accuracy. I think it's just the running seconds hand that gives the difference, but they're both comfortable. I mean, it's crazy how much I wear watches looser now, because this is now slightly too tight, because when you buy a chronograph watch, the pushers can dig in sometimes, so I like them quite loose now. But they are both comfortable, definitely, and they're both a looker. I probably prefer the 1718 now overall, even though it has many specs that I wouldn't like as much, like the domed crystal and the lack of significant taper on the bracelet. But overall, the bracelet is better on the 1644. But I like the feel of the head of the watch on the 1718, and I prefer the Panda. Having said that, I could get this in a Panda, but I like it just a little bit smaller, and that's why overall it's probably a draw. It's probably a draw overall, but my preference for the time being would be the 1718. But this was one of the watches that made me realise how good homage watches could actually be, because the spec of this bad boy compared to buying a luxury watch is pretty insane for what you're paying for less than 100 quid. And for this one, for less than 100 quid, with the sapphire, the ceramic tachymeter bezel, the pushers, the screw down pushers, and the stainless steel bracelets. The end links are completely solid. The nice big fat, spring bars in there. It's great. It is great what you can get for the money, and they are both practically unbeatable value. So I'm big fans of both. I recommend both, definitely. I do now recommend in the Panda. I think the Panda looks better probably than the all black. Although the all black is more versatile and more classy, the Panda is more sporty and more casual, but which is what I probably am more than I am that. So overall, it's a fantastic effort from Pagani. It's one of the reasons why they are one of the greatest homage watch brands on AliExpress. For the money, they are unbeatable for the money. I mean, yeah, you can pay 2 to 3 times, 4 times as much with a San Martin, but you definitely don't get that much more quality. And in some regards, they're worse. In some regards, for comfort on some watches, definitely. So overall, these are 2 absolutely cracking Pagani watches that I do recommend both of them. I recommend, if you can afford it, to get both. Maybe get one in a Panda, one in a different colour, in the black. I think you can't go wrong with either. You can put both on a rubber band. Yeah, there's so much you could do with them. It's been Dave. Hope you've enjoyed this little comparison. Have a great day. Cheers.